On. How does he turn it off in case he wants to say something bad?
Yeah, really good. I enjoyed it.
Also, where's John? Also, bro.
I know. See, you know what?
Yeah.
Chance to rise up to the ranks.
Yeah. She's dialed in, huh?
Yeah, there you go. You may want to. Where's John Alsobrook?
You know where she was at? What was she saying?
He didn't contact
I'll
you.
tell you where she was at.
Yeah, I see the microphone. Okay, I think I'm hearing noise in the background, so I think I got it. Okay, thanks, bye.
Okay, I guess we'll start. So, Melanie, are you ladies ready? Okay. I'm going to call this meeting to order, the Village of Corrales governing body special meeting to hear an appeal. Councilor Murray?
Nope, I guess I don't.
Councilor Burkett?
Here.
Councilor Knight?
Here.
Councilor Wilbon?
Here.
Councilor Mier?
Present.
And I guess, is John, you don't have him online, do you? And he did not contact you? Okay. And Randy's not here because he's dealing with the home issue. I need a motion to approve the agenda, please, which is basically an appeal hearing.
So moved. Second.
Okay, I have a motion to approve and a second. So all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Mayor?
Oh, yeah. I was just looking to see what all we had on here. Sorry.
Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to recuse myself from this because I was probably part of the instigation of this. So I'm going to sit this one out.
Well, you don't have to say anything until we vote.
Well,
And it's okay, but you can stay there. You don't have to leave. Why don't you stay and, two things. Turn your telephones off, put them on vibrate, please, so you don't make noise and disturb people speaking, and then stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah, that still leaves 4, and if John happens to make it, that'll be okay. I don't see a problem. All right, let's move on. So this is it's going to be a quasi judicious process, and so for the tape, I'm Jim Fahey. I'm mayor of the Village of Corrales, and we have 4 members of the council. Actually, we have 5 members of the council who are here, 4 of whom will probably vote on the disposition of this site development plan appeal. We have Councilor Rick Miera, Councilor Bill Woolman, Councilor Mel Knight, Councilor Zachary Burkett, and Councilor Stuart Murray, who has recused himself from any decisions. Councilor John Alsobrook has not made it quite yet. Did he know that we were doing this? Okay.
Well, I cannot get it.
Say again?
You ask the people on Zoom to stay muted. I keep muting this person and they keep unmuting themselves.
Oh, those on Zoom, could you please mute yourself right now? Until you actually till you're recognized to speak. I'm going to ask the appellant to please identify themselves. That would be you? Vaughn Dolan. Okay. Thank you. The scope of this appeal will be limited to why the council should uphold the condition of the approval of the site development plan 23-03 to require the applicant to build a buffer fence on the property at 4484 Corrales Road. If you go outside the scope, I'll call you on it, and basically that will be irrelevant. What we're deciding today is the issue of the fence to provide a buffer for the property. We're recording this meeting tonight, so a complete, clear record can be created of everything said. Please remember that we cannot create an accurate record when people are talking over one another or interrupting. So please go through me in order to speak, get my approval, so to speak. The council will have an opportunity to ask questions. And if you have questions, please say mayor so I can make sure you're identified and recognized for the record. Questions should be focused on clarifying the record or the argument given and should not include any new information or evidence being offered by a counselor through asking questions. Also want everyone's demeanor to be appropriate. There will not be any badgering or argumentation of witnesses. I'll call people on that. Evidence in this hearing is made up of everything in the record from the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing. New evidence or testimony is not allowed unless it's been approved by the council, the governing body, to be introduced for the first time here tonight. The decision is on the record of the hearing below, and if the exception is granted by the governing body for new evidence, it has to be for good cause. The evidence would include testimony or exhibits. If either party has exhibits to present that are not in the packet, they should have already presented them to our village clerk. You do have some? No? Okay.
Just identifying myself.
All right, very good. Okay, so the process will be, does anybody have any questions so far? We've done this, unfortunately, we have done this before. Okay, we'll first have a summary of the case by our planning and zoning administrator, Laurie Stout. Then will be followed by a presentation by Fawn Dolan, the appellant. Each party's time will be limited to 15 minutes. They may request time for witnesses. We already have one witness for planning and zoning that I know about. Appellant may present argument or call witnesses if allowed by the governing body, and any new witnesses will be sworn in by the village clerk. The appellant can rely on the record of exhibits and witnesses from Planning and Zoning Commission meeting where the site plan was heard. If there are any exhibits or visual arguments, those again should be given to Melanie or put on the screen, and they will have to be explained. Before making a final decision, counselors or I may have questions of the witnesses limited to clarifying the evidence, the parties' arguments, or the decision of the P&Z Commission. No independent evidence should be offered by counselors or me, and I will remind us if necessary. After all the questions, we'll close the hearing and the governing body will deliberate. You can either do that in an open session or a closed session. All decisions, however, have to be made in public. The governing body may grant the appeal and remove the condition to build a buffer fence on the property, or deny the appeal and uphold the order to build a buffer fence. Once a decision has been made, there will be a direction to our attorney to prepare a written decision and findings of fact and conclusions of law supporting the governing body's decision based on the facts established in the record. Any other questions? Any questions? Any questions from the appellant? Any questions? You okay? All right. So, Lori, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor. Counselors, you got a lot of pieces of paper in your packet. I'm going to attempt to give you a synopsis of how we got here. So the applicant for 4484 Corrales Road, known as the Emporium, first submitted a site development plan in June of 2022. That site development plan was a request to add a cannabis dispensary to existing space within her building. And the drawings showed some angled parking on the east side of the building where her parking lot is. It also showed the village code required buffer fencing would be added between the commercial and residential properties, between her property and some residential properties on the east side of the lot, just on the other side of the parking, and also on the southeast side, which is under a carport and part of the parking. That site development plan was approved. Again, that was June of 2022. So then an amended site development plan was submitted to the commission in November of 2023, where the applicant requested approval of her parking as existing and not the angled parking shown. I did give you both those drawings, but she just asked that her parking remain as is, rather than as shown by those earlier architectural drawings. Be aware, this is a 0.25 acre property. It's zone C, neighborhood commercial. So this amended site development plan was heard by Planning and Zoning Commission November 15th, 2023. All 5 commissioners present voted to approve that amended application with some conditions. One of those conditions is, again, on the original site plan, the applicant had showed the required buffer fencing as something that would be added. The Planning and Zoning Commission approved that initial site development plan with that understanding, with that in place. The buffer fencing then disappeared from the amended drawings that the commission saw last November. So the commission is fully aware of Village Code Section 1840 having to do with buffer landscaping, which I can read it. Why don't I go ahead and read it? It's only 2 short little paragraphs, really. It says where a property to be developed for a non-residential purpose abuts a residential property, special buffer landscaping is required on the non-residential property to minimize noise and site impacts. And then where the side or rear property lines of a non-residential property are contiguous to a residential property, a fence, wall, or hedge, a minimum of 6 feet in height, shall be provided to shield the residential properties from the non-residential development. So the Planning and Zoning Commission reinstated that. The third and final condition of approval last November was that the applicant must provide a 6-foot buffer fence or wall on that east and south side where her property abuts residential ones. And that's really it, unless you have questions.
Any questions? Okay. Mr.
Mayor,
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Councilor Knight.
how long is the 6-foot height of the fence? I mean, I know it's gonna be 6 foot, but how long? On the east side and the south side?
Actually, I can probably answer that pretty readily. The back of the lot is very narrow. There's a plat here that says the east side is approximately 71 feet. And I'm gonna have to guesstimate that the other portion is maybe, it's a little less, probably 50 feet on the southeast side.
I'm sorry, say again. Say again.
71 feet on the east side and approximately 50 feet on the southeast side.
Okay. Okay, anybody else? Now, Mr. McLernan wanted to speak? Okay. Now, did you speak at P and Z?
Yes, I did, but I think it's appropriate to present first. I'm in opposition.
Your rebuttal,
Yes.
I guess you could call it. What do you think? Okay, all right. But you did speak at P and Z, right? Okay. All right, so we're going to move on to Ms. Dolan. And you also gave testimony at Planning and Zoning?
I did.
Okay, so she doesn't need to be sworn in again.
That's how we've done it in the past.
Okay.
Mayor and Commissioners, my name is Fawn Dolan. I am a resident of Corrales since 1996. I am a native New Mexican. I'm also Native American. I have numerous business endeavors since 1984. I opened and operated a state licensed preschool. I have 2 thriving businesses in Bernalillo that have been open also since 1996. Excuse me. I opted to open a business in Corrales because this is where I live. It's where I raised my children. It's where I shop, I play, I live. And due to your 43-page packet, you can tell that Corrales Emporium and the Planning and Zoning Commission have been doing this dance since, I'm gonna say October of 2019. I got, the Corrales Emporium was open February 19th to sell CBD products and antiques and collectibles because it's a large space. And I knew we wouldn't be able to be sustainable with just selling CBD. And my intent was that once cannabis was legalized, that we would include those products in our inventory. So I started that application process in October. I got my state licensed in March of 2022. It took me 9 months to get in front of P&Z. During that time, it cost me a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of energy. I told the original Planning and Zoning Commission that the only thing I didn't lose was weight, and I can tell you that right now I've also lost some hair. It's due to stress, and it's called, I don't know, alopecia or something like that.
Yeah, it's balding.
Yeah, but it's
I know
very
about it.
centrally located. So anyway, the fencing, there is a fence there. There is a 6-foot chain link fence that is surrounded by mature trees on both sides of the property, on the east side and on the south side. I have been in close contact with the neighbors of the adjoining properties. They are fine with the existing fence there. It does provide buffer. We are open from 10 to 5 in the winter and 10 to 6 in the summer. We average 8 customers a day, and that is over an 8-hour period. So there's really minimal traffic that goes in and out of that parking lot. Our customers, most of them are Corrales residents, 60% of them. They appreciate the convenience. They appreciate the knowledge of our bud tenders, and they're happy to have a quaint joint in Corrales that they can choose to purchase materials from us instead of going into some of the larger cannabis industries or cannabis shops in Albuquerque area. That fence works. And for me to go in, I got an estimate of $65,000 plus tax to take the chain link fence down, which would require us to remove a bunch of mature trees, the foliage around it. It would impact the trees that are going to still be remaining on the east property and on the south property. I've talked to my neighbors and they're fine with how it is. They do not feel like the parking is a distraction or disturbs their privacy in any way, shape, or form. The woman who is the owner of the apartments on the south side said none of her tenants have complained, and she was quite happy to hear that some of her tenants are our customers. I don't know what else I can do. I've spent a lot of money trying to keep this thing going and operable and become, I don't know, self-sustaining, which is my goal. During that 9 months that I was trying to get approved by P&Z, SWAP reported a $90,000 month sales. We did $300 the first month that we were open, and we have not done $90,000 in sales in a year. There are other cannabis dispensaries that have 800 customers a day. Of course, that's in Sunland Park, and they're catering to all the Texans. But you know, there are some places that are doing $1 million a day, a month. If we have that kind of traffic, I can understand your concern, P&Z's concern, and my neighbors. These kind of issues used to be resolved back in the day between neighbors. It didn't require, this is my third appearance. It's a waste of your time, my time, and certainly some taxpayer dollars. Questions?
Anybody have yes, Councilor Knight?
Hi, Ms. Dolan. So this building was built probably in the 50s or 60s originally, and that fence has been back there for a long time anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is the reason why they want you to change it just because of the business, or?
Yes, ma'am. And I find that to be object discrimination. If we didn't do, I didn't have to put the fence, it never came up when we were just selling CBD and antiques. It was the fact that we started to sell cannabis, which is a legal substance in New Mexico.
The reason the fence was required as a buffer is because it's in our ordinance. They have to have a certain height fence or hedge, or she just read it to you. Lori.
Right, but she also, Ms. Dolan just said that there is a 6-foot fence there. So I'm wondering why, since there's been businesses there for a long time, why it wasn't requested before when other businesses were in there. I mean, instead of like right now because of the business that she has. That's my question.
Yeah, I don't think anybody has an answer to that.
And
I mean,
my-
you have to go back to the Planning and Zoning Commission many years ago to see
So
why a decision was made.
I'm unaware of any other site development plans for that property. There may have been some, but there haven't been any other site development plans. It's just one of the things you must do if you have a site development plan is put in the buffer fence. So I don't know what happened.
So since this is a new business, they had to get a new site development plan, even though there's numerous other businesses in the complex?
Correct, that's also in our code. Anytime there's a change of use to a building, then a site development plan. You hear me okay?
Yeah.
Anytime there's a change of use, people have to do a site development plan, or if they add to the footprint of the building, or there's another, something in there about adding parking. Every site development plan that the commission has seen since I've been here has buffer fencing as either it exists or it must be added.
So since it already exists, why are we asking her to change it?
Because it doesn't exist. There's a chain link fence. I don't know how tall it is. I enclosed pictures in there. The intent is to shield from noise and lights and such, and a chain link fence doesn't do that. So a fence or wall, more or less solid, is how that's always been interpreted.
I see the pictures in here as far as the chain link fence, as well as the foliage that's there. And it looks like pretty mature foliage. So if there was another business in this complex that was further west, would they have to deal with this as well? Or just because hers is towards the back, the east end, that's why she has to address it?
Her building is on a 0.25 acre lot. The front faces Corrales Road. So there's already a wall, a suitable wall around part of the business, just not the parking lot portion. So does that answer your question? There's Ms. Dolan's business, and then she subleases to someone else there too.
But we're talking about the way back, right? The very eastern part. So is there a business back there?
That's the parking for her business.
But is there another business east of the parking lot?
That's
No,
a
it's a
residence.
residence.
Okay.
It's a residence.
My husband corrected me, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor. I said 65,000, 6,500, same difference.
Yeah, the math about made me pass out, and it made me, I was actually applying for jobs as a fencer.
Facility builders doing it.
Right.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir. Councilor
I
Miera.
had two questions and she answered one of them because I was still running with 65,000, got me on that one. But the other question I had for either one, and I don't know who wants to answer it. At any time, what we're dealing with right now, did you agree, or did the complainant agree to do the work, and now we're just appealing it with regards to the dates that have been given to us?
Correct. On the original site development plan from 2022, the buffer fencing was shown, and then it was not shown on the 2023 amended version. So the Planning and Zoning Commission originally approved this with the knowledge that buffer fencing would be placed there. And so when it was removed, they reinstated that as a condition of approval of this amended version.
Okay, thank you. But the question is, did you or did you ever agree to do this? And because I thought I read somewhere there's a lot of paperwork that you had agreed to this at one time.
I would have agreed to anything at that point. At waiting 9 months to get in front of P&Z because it seemed like there just kept being more and more hoops and more things that weren't right or weren't on the P&Z according to Ms. Stout's opinion. So when we finally got that approval, which was unanimous, and they had the conditions, I was just like, okay, great. I still had to put up $8,000 to get the security cameras, do all the things that were required by the state. And the only thing that was really required by the village of Corrales, the site development plan and the site plan have been points of contention between Ms. Stout ever since the beginning, because it says if, not is required. The city attorney also agreed that it was the site development plan for cannabis was pretty much aimed at growers of cannabis, not necessarily cannabis retailers. My cannabis room is less than 300 square feet in a 2,100 square foot building. So it's very minimal. The impact has been very minimal on this village. And while there's always traffic and always parking issues, we did not cause them and we can't solve them. My biggest concerns are trying to keep Hannah and Nate's customers from parking in this very limited parking space. I forgot what your question was.
My question was initially, because you're appealing it now, but I thought I read in here somewhere that, as you said, it may have been because you had a hard time getting in front of them, but you agreed somewhere, either initially or somewhere down the road, to do what we're talking about tonight that you don't want to do, but you agreed to doing it. Was that because of their decision, or did you, not voluntarily, but you did say, I will agree to do this?
I was under extreme duress, I'm telling you, and there were other conditions. One was that we remove the parking structure, which made absolutely no sense, and also to remove a storage shed that made absolutely no sense. And the fact that there is a buffer fence there and has been a buffer fence or wall. I mean, it says in the ordinance, fence or wall, those are two different things to me. There is a fence there. And there, it does buffer the adjoining properties, and they do not have concerns. If they did, believe me, I would be working with them one-on-one, and it wouldn't require, village council to help make that happen.
Thank you.
Counselor Wallman?
Thank you, Mayor. I think I read in here that you're actually leasing the property. You don't own the property,
Correct.
is that correct?
Corrals Emporium does not own that building.
Have you spoken with the owner of the property about
Yes.
providing the fencing?
Yes. And Ms. Stout's going to tell you that my husband and I own that property. It is in an LLC, but Corrales Emporium, if I close the doors tomorrow, which would be a prudent thing to do based on how much money we are generating, would be a non-issue. And that to me is what's the discrimination here, is because I opted to add cannabis products to our inventory.
So, excuse me, but did you say you and your husband do own the property?
We do own it. It's in an LLC.
But the
Corrales
answer to the
Emporium-
question is yes, you do own the property.
Mm,
You have a tax scam, well, not a scam, but a tax issue.
A pass-through
Oh, Lord.
So
entity.
it's limited liability corporation. Yes, I understand.
Corrales Emporium is a tenant of
The
4484
owner
Corrales
listed.
Road.
Is the applicant in the site development plan.
Okay. So what does that mean then?
That the same entity that is the applicant owns the property.
So she's sworn to tell the truth, and she's just now told us something that is not true.
Well, it's owned by an LLC, but that LLC.
But she owns
is
the
applicant.
LLC.
Yeah, and that is the same as the applicant.
My
Okay,
husband is a managing member of the LLC.
okay, all right. Any other questions? Yes, Councilor Burkett.
So I guess I have a question as far as how we define a hedge. Since hedge is listed as one of the options for buffering, do we have a formal definition, or what is the usable definition we've currently used?
Well, if you're thinking about an opaque surface, it actually came up before Planning and Zoning Commission one time, and someone, Casa Perea tried to do that. They were gonna plant some plants, and they died, it didn't work out, so they just put a fence up. But if someone, I mean, theoretically, if someone put in some fully mature boxwoods that are 6 feet tall, and you really couldn't see through them, that would,
No, she just came.
by
up with
law,
this.
by our ordinance, be
That's
okay.
good research.
They don't want the lights to shine through and a little bit of the sound mitigation.
Time's up.
I just have one more question.
Yes, Councilor Knight.
Thank you, Mayor. So I guess I'm having trouble with the timeline here a little bit. So when you first opened, you didn't sell the cannabis, but you sold other things and there was no problem with this?
Correct.
And then as soon as you decided to add to your, that you were gonna sell, then it came up again?
Yes, ma'am. The state required that we have a business permit from the municipality in which we were going to be selling cannabis. So when I applied for that $35 permit, that started the whole process. And that process cost me $20,000 between having to do a survey that has not changed since 1977, having to do architectural plans that the state did not require, but P&Z did, having those architectural plans revised 3 and 4 different times, as Ms. Stout would find things that were either missing or incorrect, or she didn't think that would be, that was not complete enough to present to P&Z. A lot of expenses out of pocket during that time frame.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask Gloria a question? So when Ms. Dolan first opened her business, there weren't any problems with the site plan?
It didn't come to our attention. Planning and zoning only sees it if there is a zoning violation or if there is a site development plan. And I did want to bring something up real quick, if I may. Some of you may remember back when y'all were kind of thrashing over the cannabis ordinance in general. And I don't know if you remember, but there was a work study in this room, and you asked me, if there's a dispensary or any kind of a cannabis application for business, will there be a public meeting? And I said, absolutely. We don't pick on cannabis. If someone were to put a little bar into an existing business where one did not exist, that would be a site development plan. if someone were to put a little cafe into what was normally just retail, that would also prompt a site development plan. We're not picking on anybody. We're just following our own rules.
Okay, I just needed to make sure I was okay with the timeline. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I do have one more
Yes,
question.
Councilman Burkett.
So how long have you operated a business in there, and why was there not a site development plan from when it was initially started?
We opened the Kraus Emporium February of 2019, and it was a turnkey operation. We changed the locks and we started selling CBD and antiques and collectibles that kind of spilled over from the antique store I have in Bernalillo.
Okay. And you were unaware of the need to do a site development plan at that point in time?
I got the business license and we opened our doors.
Okay.
I didn't do anything, outside of normal procedures.
Yeah, I mean, because I do agree, we see a lot of businesses and they all, I read through the planning and zoning notes every month and every one of them has this conversation about buffer fencing. So I think to say that you're being picked on is not accurate from my standpoint. It is unfortunate that you've operated there with no issue and the neighbors are perfectly fine with it, but I believe Ms. Stout's correct that, any business, whether we were opening up a charity for homeless kids or a Hemporium, would have the same rules.
Anyone else? Mr. McLaren, would you like to speak now? Thank you, Fawn.
I'm Pat McLennan, and I just wanted to let you know that I didn't file this appeal. I have on several occasions, but this was not my appeal. I'm not opposed to this business. However, I'm opposed to this request because I think we should uphold our ordinances. We have them for a reason. Everyone who's applied for an application for business license goes through our ordinances and complies with them. And everybody who will come before you for future applications will also have to apply to the ordinances. And so for that reason, I submitted written comments, but I'm not going to repeat any of those. I just wanted to comment on the process. Thank you.
I have another question. Mayor,
Oh, excuse me. Yes,
who
ma'am.
did file the appeal?
I think Fawn did, Fawn Dolan.
Oh, okay, okay.
And I filed that appeal because after the last P&Z meeting, when it was approved with that condition remaining, and also that we lost the parking up front that's been there since 1977, and really minimized the minimal traffic that we do have, because now people can't park up front. I appealed it because Ms. Stout informed me that there was a third party that even before the ink had dried on that approval, a third party had requested all the notes, all the minutes, everything concerning my application from the beginning of time. And they had 20 days to appeal that. So I thought, had I known that I could have appealed initial conditions back in the day, I would have. So I just thought, I'm not going to sit here for 20 days and sweat it out. I'm just going to use that 20 days to appeal the fact that they are still requesting a buffer fence when, in my oh so humble opinion, already exists.
And did you want to speak? Have you spoken before?
Yes, I was at the
Okay. Could you please identify yourself and where you live?
Yes, I'm Jim Bullard, and I have owned the property on 52 East Ellis, so I'm the one on the east side. We've owned that property since 1980. I had submitted written documentation. I'm not sure if that's goes to everybody or not. So,
Yeah.
we've been there. I've owned it since '85, and we've lived there since 1990. So I could bore you with the history of that property. It had an interesting history. So we are zone A1, of course. I'm very aware of the buffer issue. But the Hemporium has had very little impact on our property. There's no traffic there at night. So there's no issue with lights or any of that type of thing. They have limited hours. We have extensive landscaping along that east side, partly on the fence, but on our own, we have big fir trees up and down there. It shields us from the property very well, given the current usage that's outlined in the Hemporium. So I just don't see why they would require that. Like I say, we are not impacted by it currently. And that's all I really, don't know what else to really say. If it's means anything, I mean,
Yeah.
that's not an issue to me. I can understand it could be if it was, impacting us, but it's not. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Yes, Councilor Burkett.
So I think something that he said was critically important is that in the current usage, everybody is very happy with the arrangement, but changing the usage doesn't trigger another site development plan. So if they decide they're going to stay open till 10 o'clock at night, and they then if they get really busy and have 200 customers a day, there's nothing to trigger a site development plan at that point. When this business goes into place is our only point to do this. And so we have to plan for possible scenarios of increased utilization. And it sounds like you guys are incredible neighbors. It sounds like you're probably the best business to be next to right now. But these things would
Ex-novo
prevent
is
for
better.
things turning south.
I think ex novo is probably better.
That's
Let me remind you, even the village has to do site development plans. Even the village has to build walls. Okay? I mean, even the village has to get variances. Okay? I mean, what was it you told me? We said today, we've had 3 appeals in the last year or 2, and 2 of them have been the village. So I'm saying everybody, will have issues with planning and zoning, and especially the village, who actually has control of the ordinances, has issue with it sometimes, but we comply. Okay, anybody else? I didn't mean to rant, but yes, sir, Councilwoman.
One question for Ms. Dolan, if I could. I thought I read in here somewhere that you indicated that it was cost prohibitive at this time, but over a period of time, it might be acceptable to build that fence, 6 months or so. Did I read that correctly?
Yes, sir. I'd like to have a couple of years. It takes small businesses.
I've owned a small business and I know a restaurant, I know how long that could be.
It take, sorry. Five years to be considered successful. They don't get REBs, we don't get any kind of tax incentives. We're just a bunch of crazy entrepreneurs that think our ideas that could look. So, this is all stress, excuse me. Give me a year to see if we're even still in existence. Think of how many small businesses have come and gone in Corrales on any main street. So we have been selling cannabis since 2022. It has been a constant barrage of government and the village kind of overseeing and micromanaging what I'm trying to do. If we are still in existence by the year 2026, would that be okay with the village to give me that time frame?
That's not really our position. Our position is to decide whether or not you get a buffer.
Okay.
That discussion would have to, Lori, would that discussion have to go back before planning and zoning?
I don't know. They have already issued the condition.
That's
of
what I mean.
above
It's
them,
not-
So I don't even know where we go with it.
The appeal is not, the appeal is to whether or not to do the buffer.
Correct.
Mayor, the appeal letter does ask for 6 months, but yeah, that's very different than asking for 2026.
It's 2 years from now.
The appeal is on the height of the fence.
Right. I mean, yeah, I'm just saying in the appeal letter itself, it does request a 6-month extension as a possible solution. So that's, I think, where Councilor Waldman saw that information. But yeah, I mean, 3 years or 2 years feels like a long time.
Okay, any more questions? Are we ready to consider? . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . You want a meeting closed or you want a meeting open? Okay, we'll keep it open. So the decision is, we can grant the appeal and remove the condition to build a buffer fence on the property, or we can deny the appeal and uphold the order to build a buffer fence. So you either approve the appeal or you deny the appeal. So I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to deny the appeal.
Do I have a second? Hearing none, is there another motion someone would like to make? Counselor Knight?
I move we grant the appeal because of the fence in the back. There's a fence.
Do you have a second?
Second.
We have a second to grant the appeal. Counselor Knight voted to approve and Counselor Woolman, okay. All right, any further discussion at this point? Yes, sir, Counselor Burkett.
I just want to know how the next business that comes in and says a chain link fence has been defined as a buffer fence by this council does not get the same exception. And so if somebody has a brewery put next to them or a distillery or a drive-in theater or whatever the next business is, this is now our standard of a buffer fence is chain
I
link.
agree with that.
Well, that's sort of what has happened over the years, excuse me, Counselor Knight. This is sort of what has happened over the years in the village. Counselor Knight, you wanted to say something?
Well, to me, it's just not a fence, what do you call it, a cyclone fence. There's tons of trees and bushes there.
On the
It needs to
neighbor's
be-
property though. There's one tree on their property. So the neighbor has done, I mean, what if they decide they want to re-landscape?
Okay, we got a lot of what ifs here. Now, anybody else have anything they want to say on the council? We ready for a vote? So the motion is to grant the appeal. How do you vote, Counselor Miera?
Grant the appeal.
Grant the appeal, Counselor Woolman?
Aye.
Counselor Knight?
Aye.
Counselor Burkett?
No.
Do we have John? Has he showed up? Okay, it looks like the appeal has been approved. We will direct our legal counsel to prepare findings, conclusions, decisions of the governing body. Document will be prepared and will be distributed to confirm this vote. Will be voted on a date that we will decide upon. And we will decide upon. Okay? All right, this appeal is over.